Hello, guys, and welcome to Biscuit International. This is, of course, part of the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. Now, don't worry, folks. This is going to be a limited run of podcasts we're putting together because usually the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast sticks to in and around Shropshire. But for many years, me and my co-host in Vermont, Tom Bruno, we run podcasts that were designed to speak to people from either side of the Atlantic. And we don't do that anymore. And I miss him very much, and I miss doing that. So I decided to get in touch with our good friends at TV Guestpert over in America. The logo's there at the top of the screen there. Please, by all means, go to TV Guestpert.com and check out what they do, because they give authors and people that want to get in touch with the media the opportunity to do so. So thank you so much. And we had some amazing conversations that are still alive on the USUK podcast network, by the way. That's US UK. And we spoke to amazing people like Kevin Bailey, Dr. Joanna Dodd-Massey, Dr. Selena Nadelman, Peter Bedard, and Christy Whitman, just to name a few. We've had some amazing guests from them. So thank you so much for organizing this. A special shout out as well actually goes to Laura Olson, who's the booking expert there at TV Guestpert, who's put this together very quickly. I was like, I want to do like 6 episodes, and she filled up 5 of them. So thank you so much, Laura. You're an absolute star. Today's guest comes to us from New Jersey. Is that right?
That's correct.
And it's Larry Carlson. By the way, Larry Carlson is just an amazing name. It's a really strong name. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Well, good. I'm glad to be here, and thanks for the invitation.
It's wonderful. Really wonderful to speak to you. I think the best way, what I usually do, is I find out a little bit about you, Larry. So, do you hail from New Jersey originally? Is that where you're born and raised?
No, I grew up in Boston, and then after I got out of college, I lived in Boston for 12 years. We moved to South Florida for a few years, and then I spent 20 years in Chicago, and for the last 11 have been here in New Jersey. So all the time in not-for-profit senior living management.
Is that something that when you were in college, when you were growing up, you always wanted to work in?
Well, no, I mean, I got a degree in business, and so when I got out with my business degree, I was sort of qualified to do nothing, right? and so healthcare was an interest of mine, and so I went into senior living at that point.
Wonderful. There must be a lot of rewards and challenges that are met with that field of work, of course.
Absolutely, and certainly the world of senior living has changed considerably in the last 45 years.
Yes, of course. I mean, I've got
when
friends
when I got my first job, the staff called me the boy administrator because I was 23.
Wow.
And now I just turned 70, and I'm like everybody's grandfather, right?
There is no way you're 70. You don't look 70 at all. No way. I only said vitamins then. What vitamins?
Right.
What vitamins are you taking? You look really good. You look really good for 70.
Thank you so much.
I'm only 21 myself. I'm joking. Well, I mean, to go from that though, the boy administrator, in quotations, to where you are today.
Yeah.
It must feel good to have all that experience behind you. But it must have been an adventure for you over those years.
It's been a journey, and I've worked for a number of not-for-profit senior living organizations, and the common thread between all of them is that there are so many committed, dedicated people who work in this industry, and they come to work each day with a passion and a purpose because they know that they're making a difference in somebody's life.
Yeah, I get the feeling that with non-for-profit, you have that more of a desire, more compassion to help people. It's not just your day to day, and you're there because you have a passion for helping people. That makes an awful lot of sense.
Yep. And a lot of people, like I said, they come to work as a personal ministry, an expression of who they are because they want to make a difference in someone's life. And so, irrespective of where I've lived and worked, that seems to have been a common thread.
And you say that, cares, whether it comes to sort of mental health, elderly care, there are certain things that have changed over the years, some for better, would you say mostly for better or mostly for worse? I mean, obviously there were some amazing changes been made, but
no, I think that the industry as a whole has developed considerably since the mid 1970s when I first went into this. It's a much more sophisticated world and world we operate in, and I think that we've made great strides in delivering much better care and much more person-centered care.
But it is such a massive industry, I guess. Is industry the right word?
Yeah,
because
sure.
Speaking for someone over here in the UK, I'm living in quite a newly built up area. This is a brand new housing estate, and they've just finished building a care home this side and one the other side of the road. There's lots going on at the moment because there seems to be a high demand for elderly care homes. And this seems to be an upward trend. There seems to be more and more needed to help. Is that because we recognize more of what is needed? I mean, I've read a lot about your bio, and the way you say it is like, we don't need to, the consensus I'm getting is we shouldn't be cramming so many people into such a small space. We need to spread out a little bit more and offer a bit more of a care ratio. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think if you go back, 50 years, the care model, especially in senior living, was modeled after the hospital model. And so, 2 people to a room, or sometimes 4 people to a room. And, the nurses and everything, it was very institutional. And I think as we've, moved over the decades, it's been a movement toward more normalizing life for people who are in their aged years, and to make things more home-like and person-directed, so that as I say, when people used to move into my building, nothing should change in their life except their address when they move into one of our buildings. And what that means is that we need to adjust the rhythm of the institution to meet the needs of that individual person. Versus 50 years ago, when you moved into an institution, you had to adjust your life to the rhythm of the institution because that was the efficient way to do it. That's the way, hospitals typically run.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's been the big paradigm shift. And then as you go into sort of, dementia, which is what I've written my book about, it's really about normalizing life for people who have a dementia diagnosis, and not just the person who has the diagnosis, but for their families and their caregivers.
And many apologies that I haven't had time to read your book, Larry. We organized this like 2 weeks ago, and we've got like a very concentrated interview schedule over the next 2 weeks. But what is the name of your book, and where can people find it? I'm sure people over here in the UK.
Yeah, it's called Avandell, Reimagining the Dementia Experience. And it really was, after 40 years in the senior living industry, I came to the conclusion that there's a better way to provide a dignified and meaningful life for those individuals who have a dementia or Alzheimer's diagnosis. And that was really about the journey when I was the CEO of United Methodist Communities here in New Jersey, that we went on to take our dementia programming and take it to the next level of person-directed care. And then my wife and I went to Amsterdam in 2017, and we visited De Hoykeve, which is the first dementia village in the world. And I really captured my interest and passion. I said, we need to bring this back to the U.S. No one is doing this. So the book is about the journey of UMC, United Methodist Communities, on developing our own internal programs for the dementia residences we currently operate in New Jersey, to what was the next step was really in developing that dementia village. So that's what the book is about.
And brownie points, you get 10 points, by the way. Louise Patterson, who I put a Facebook post up mentioning that I was speaking to you and asking if anybody had any questions. And Louise Patterson put, apparently there's a village like this in the Netherlands. I think it's an essential care home for people with dementia, and they do really well there. So well done, Louise. You knew that. Sounds like groundbreaking stuff, though.
It is groundbreaking stuff because, typically, at least in the U.S., a dementia residence has probably 20 to 40 people living in it. And let's face it, it's not normal to live with 20 or 40 people, right?
No.
We usually live in a family scale of 6 or 7 people. And so that's what De Hoykeve did, and that's what we're going to do at Avandell. We're going to have 15 houses of 7 residents each. Everybody will have their own bedroom, and there's a living room, dining room, kitchen, den, laundry facilities. And the rhythm of the day will be with however those residents choose to live. And we want to group people together who have like values and interests. So there might be an art house, there might be a music house, there might be a house people who really like to watch sports or something. But then the day is going to be normalized because there's going to be a grocery store, there's going to be a bistro. And so, what do? We go to the grocery, we buy, we say, what do we want for lunch? Let's go to the grocery and pick up some supplies. Let's come back and let's together make it. On the way, we'll stop at the barn and see the animals, see what the sheep and the goats are doing. Or somebody can just sit in the butterfly garden and feel the sun on their face, because guess what? It's normal to experience the weather, right?
Yeah.
And in most institutions, it's behind a locked door. And you don't get out, and the typical answer is you can't do this, you can't do that, no this, no that. Our goal is to say, how do we say yes to as much as possible? So if somebody wants to go outside, we'll say, sure, it's cold outside. Okay, let's put your coat on and you can go out, because the 15 houses are sort of built in a circular kind of a thing way, and so I'll call it the whole of the donut is a secure environment, so they can wander around and explore and experience all that the inner courtyard has to offer, and go to the grocery store and come home again.
Because I guess there's a lot of that routine is something that's ingrained into a lot of people that have done that over the decades.
Right.
These are still the amazing people that they were,
Yep.
20, 30, 40 years ago. That it's in there somewhere. And I guess with doing all these exercises and making sure that these routines still live up, it might recapture something. Maybe. I mean, that sounds like the idea.
Absolutely, because long-term memory stays a lot more intact than short-term memory. So, even when you sit down for the holidays with someone who has a dementia diagnosis, you could have a family karaoke party and sing some Christmas carols, and in many cases they're going to remember the lyrics of the song and join in, even though they may not remember what they had for breakfast.
I think I remember seeing a news report on this place a while ago, actually, and there was I remember seeing the shops and things, and it really encourages these residents to come out of their shell a little bit more, And I also remember seeing I don't know if I think it was a separate a news report about a gentleman who had Alzheimer's, and they sat him in front of a piano. And he was definitely non-verbal, and his mobility wasn't great. And they sat him in front of a piano, and he just started playing the most beautiful music, and he just started shaking his head, and he started really coming to life, and you could see the soul and everything come back. The music, which is again, it's just that routine. It's just that thing that he knows and he loves and he has passion for. It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely. Music is definitely a connection for people who have memory issues, because they can remember those things.
I want to give a shout out to the guys at Shropshire Floats as well. They I had a day there once where it's a sensory deprivation tanks, giant eggs you sit in, you float in, and it plays nice music and stuff. But they also have a sun lounge, and it's one of the weirdest because it was a dreary. I'm pretty sure it was like October or November. It was just a dreary, rainy day, and we went there, and they introduced me to the sunroom, and they've got like a beach set up in a room inside the house, and they had the sun lamps, and they had sun lounges and a great like view of a beach that you could sit and look at, and you can just lie there and absorb the sun inside this house. You saying like there are the ways you can sort of help people. Is that an idea you've ever thought of? Bringing the beach?
I mean, our idea is really to, as I said, normalize life, and so our environment is going to be so they can go outside and feel the sun on their face and sit on the butterfly.
You guys in America, you get nice sun over there.
Well, I mean, even if you go to Amsterdam at De Hoekevee, you know, it snows in the Netherlands, and
I suppose
their residents go outside and they go to their bistro, their grocery store, their theater, because it's normal.
It is. Yeah, it feels right. It feels right. I love everything about what you're saying, and finding the right people for the right job. I mean, how has that been? Because you know, you're saying it's a non-for-profit organization, which is fantastic. Like I said, it brings the right people in. But do you need to find people with a little bit more compassion and a little bit more understanding to understand this isn't just a normal nursing home?
No, it's not. But you know what's really interesting, Alex, is that the staff that we have working in our dementia program, which by the way we call Tapestries.
Okay.
There are certain people who are really drawn to that, and there are other people who really don't want anything to do with it. And so they sort of self-select because there's just some people who resonate with wanting to do that. And I think that, you know, sort of the proof in the pudding is that out of all the product lines that we run within our senior living organization, the place that has the least amount of turnover are our employees who work in our dementia unit. There's, like I said, there's just a calling, and they make such deep relationships with these residents that they just feel a personal connection with them. They don't want to leave. Yeah,
and that's nice for the residents as well. Do you call them residents over there? Is that
we call them residents? Yeah. You know, and one of the things that we've really tried to do is in our person-directed care paradigm is to really get behind the distress that is causing someone with dementia to, you know, be stressed out and uncomfortable and possibly, you know, act out. So, and I can give you a quick example. It's you know, we had a resident who after dinner, he would start to act out because they call it sundowning. And but our staff knew that resident well enough that in his previous, before he got there, he was a hotel security guard. And at the end of his shift, he would walk around the building and check the doors and check the windows and make sure everything was all right. And then he would leave for the night. And so knowing this, the staff said, let's take him around the place here and have him check the doors, windows, and doors. And guess what? The behaviors stopped because he was comfortable that he was in a safe environment. He could go to bed.
Wow.
And another one was we had he happened to be the fire chief, and he was living there. And every night, you know, he was a kind of a person who really wanted to take care of everybody. And so after dinner, he would tell the wait staff in the dining room, I'll take the bill because I want to take care of it for everybody tonight. And of course, the staff response is, well, you know, Mr. Jones, I mean, this is your home. You don't have to pay for dinner. It's all taken care of. And he would get very agitated. And so they sort of put their heads together and said, you know, what's going on here? And they went to his family and they said, could we have a defunct credit card with his name on it? And so, you know, they gave it to him. And so that at dinner, when he said, I want to take care of the bill, they said, oh, okay, let me have your credit card. And so he handed him the credit card and, you know, made like he was paying for everybody. And then guess what? His agitation stopped. And so, you know, a lot of times what in past days, what the industry has done is they would treat those behaviors with either behavior modification or drugs to, you know, mask the symptoms. And what our notion is to get behind what's driving the stress in somebody's life and try to figure out how we can de-escalate that. And so many times the behavior goes away. And those two examples sound pretty simplistic, but if the staff don't know the residents well enough, they would never be able to connect the dots and make that happen.
It's not, you can't just simply reprogram people, can you? And that's a stubbornness and the strength coming through, which is a good show of character, I suppose. If you're a fire chief and you're full of pride and you know what you've been there, you know what I mean? You're not gonna be submissive all of a sudden, are you? And that the fact that you guys have understood that is really cool.
Yeah. So it's a real testament to our staff and the connection they have with the people that they're caring for.
Yeah. What are the challenges of running something like this as opposed to a normal home that you think you're going to face? Obviously, it's a completely different setup with different mechanics running behind it.
Yeah. So, well, for starters, at least in the U.S., our industry is very highly regulated, and so the regulations were written for an institutional model, and all of a sudden we say we want to do this. It's a very decentralized thing with disconnected houses and an open space for people to go out and engage with the wider community, and so the regulators say, how do we fit this round peg into a square hole, right?
Yeah. I guess the place in the Netherlands is a great resource for you. You can look at that and how that's worked.
Absolutely.
Are you in contact with them?
Absolutely. Well, as I said, I visited there in 2017, and then I've been in touch with them any number of times on a consulting basis as we started to write the program for Avandell, and they're a tremendous help. And the fact that I can, obviously I've met with our state regulators here to introduce this project so that by the time it, would go into construction and is ready to be licensed by the Department of Health, that they're going to be able to license it, nice. Knowing what we're doing, that because we're going to design it so that it checks off all their boxes, and so it's just been. And the fact that I can say that, De Hoekeveen's been there since 2009 and been successful goes a long way in letting them say, well, maybe this guy isn't so crazy after all, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, is it crazy to show someone a little bit more care and a bit more compassion? It's not. It's a beautiful thing what you're doing. And do you think it'll take off across America? Do you think there'll be more places like what you're building?
I think that in America, that this is probably the most significant and impactful change in dementia care in the last 30 years. And I think once people find out about it, they're going to want to come, A, to live in it, and B, to find out how to do it. And I know that UMC is setting it up that it's not so special that it can't be copied. In fact, they want to help people copy it. So, I think it's going to change the way the next generation of people with the dementia are cared for. And I think these things are going to be popping up all over. And, just if you just look at the Hoekeveen's model, because of that one, there's one in British Columbia, there's one in France, there's one in Italy, there's one in Australia. I think it's a paradigm that is come of its time, come of its age. And I think people are going to latch onto it and want to replicate it.
I'll try to look for something here in the UK. Listeners, if you're listening to this and you know something, please correct me. But I was having a good look on the old Google today, and I couldn't find anything. So I don't know if there is anything like this in the UK. So it sounds like something that we could all get on board with, because you're right. These residents aren't just cogs in a machine. They're not just there to sit there and play chess if they've been forced to play chess, or eat the pudding if they don't want to eat the pudding. You can't just put them in a room. I read the bio. And you said you shouldn't just be wheeling residents into a quiet room. Like, that's not how we do. Interaction is really, really important for anybody.
Because you want people to be engaged.
Yeah, of course.
And you want people to connect with things that brought meaning to their life 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. And just because they have Alzheimer's doesn't mean those things aren't there. Those are ways that we can, connect with them. And so that's why when our staff know them so well, they can come up with these ways to minimize the distress and manage those behaviors without having to go with drugs and, distraction.
Yeah. And Alzheimer's and dementia, they're absolutely devastating to not just the victims or the residents, but to the families around them and the people around them. We've seen time and time again how Alzheimer's is just devastating.
There are 944,000 people in the UK who have some form of dementia right today.
Yes. Yeah.
And probably
I'm taking your word for it. I didn't look at the number.
well, yeah, and if I did my math correctly, it's probably costing 52 billion pounds sterling a year to take care of them.
Wow. Yeah.
It's a big number.
Good old NHS. Yeah. Do you guys have a lot of interactivity with the relatives as well, and sort of how to deal with this situation? What's the best thing to do with Grandpa when you come and sit with him at home? How to have a conversation? How to kind of get the best out of him, and how the times when to back? Do you have that time with the relatives?
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, we want to have that time with the relatives, and I think you do some of the strategies that you talked about earlier. I mean, music is a big one.
Of course.
And if that was something that brought meaning to them previously, it's probably going to continue to be there for a while. And so, you can come in and sit down and listen to some songs that maybe were of his time or her time. And as I said, they may remember the words, even though they can't remember what they had for breakfast.
Yeah. It's just one of those things that I think the most recent story concerning Alzheimer's is with Chris Hemsworth, of course, the actor.
Yes.
He's found out he's got a high chance of getting it when he's older. He's got the gene, and so he's decided to take a step back from acting, and he wants to spend his best years with his family. To find out so soon that you could be affected by it later on in life.
Well, he may. I mean, that just
may. Yeah,
he has the gene. But having the gene is not a prison sentence. All it is, it's an indication. So it's no different than having, seeing that you have high blood pressure. So the question is, what are you going to do about it? And I think, many people who have the gene don't get it. And there are plenty of people who don't have the gene who do get it. So, there's no guarantees there. So, heart health. So things you do for heart health are good for brain health. And so if you follow those kinds of strategies, you can, just like you can minimize heart disease, you can minimize the likelihood that you're going to, have Alzheimer's as well.
That's really handy to know. And, you talked earlier at the beginning of the podcast about how, certain treatments and certainly the industry's changed over the last 20 years or so. Are we understanding more about dementia and Alzheimer's that helps prolong treatment and keep people, I don't want to use words that offend people, but more themselves for a little bit longer? Is there anything that's been put in place?
So, there was just a drug that was announced here just a couple of days ago that's supposed to delay the onset of dementia. Now, it's just out of clinical trials. It remains to be seen whether it's going to, how it's going to take off. And it's really, and a couple of these Alzheimer's drugs that are out there are really only for the early stage. But if you can delay the onset or the progression of the disease, that's obviously huge news and a way of understanding what's going on and what's driving that dementia diagnosis.
I had a question from my good friend Rocky Huber, who's in New Hampshire, in America. I don't know if he's poking fun, but I'm going to ask it anyway, only simply because I think it's probably worth mentioning it. Things are changing in America, and there's certain things that are seemed a bit more accessible and acceptable nowadays. And of course, he's mentioned cannabis. He said, is cannabis allowed? Now, I think I'm going to round that up to like the things that are comfortable for the patient or the resident. The cheeky odd beer now and again, or to partake if it's legal and it's what they're used to in that sort of recreational use of cannabis. I don't know. Is that something that you guys have looked at? I mean, how does that work with you guys? Because it's kind of legal in a lot of places in America now.
Well, I mean, New Jersey just legalized it in the last year or so. And I would say that our philosophy probably will be that if they liked it before, we wouldn't withhold it now. But we're not going to say, oh, everybody needs to get high.
No, of course not. No. But thank you, Rocky, for that question. And I think, even I think it's half being serious. The way he worded it was quite funny as well. He put, "Can you ask them if there'll be cannabis on his old people island?" That's typical Rocky. Thank you.
If Rocky smokes it now, he can smoke it then in all likelihood.
And things are constantly changing with the world at the moment, and nothing changes quicker and faster than technology. Of course, technology is constantly keeping us on our toes, keeps me on my toes. There's a new app or a new site or a new thing to use every single year. Have you guys found advancements in technology to help you guys move forward?
Yeah, one of the cool things that's going to happen at Avandell is that our lobby is not going to be like a sofa and a chair. We're actually building a smart house in our lobby.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
And it's going to be sort of a marriage between, an Apple Genius Bar kind of a place where people can come in, and we're going to showcase the latest the technology that seniors can use, especially around managing dementia. So it'll be like I said, the Apple Genius Bar. You can come in, you can touch it, you can feel it, you can try it. And I think it'll be a great resource for the wider community, especially for those people who are caring for someone at home who may be in the early stages of the Alzheimer's. Things that would help with engagement as well as safety. And so, as I said, we're going to have this smart house that they can come in and see the kinds of things that might be in someone's kitchen to help them, function better, or in their bedroom or living room. I think it's going to be pretty cool.
That sounds really good, because, when you think of smart technology, it's not just TVs and tablets and things. You can have like smart lights now, and you can have smart switches to switch things on, and
smart thermostats. In one of our senior living, we put smart thermostats in, so people just say, Alexa, turn the temperature down to 68 degrees. Yeah.
That would absolutely cause chaos.
I probably should have said that in Celsius, should I? Not Fahrenheit.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that would cause a nightmare in my job.
You'll have to do the conversion for me.
me and my American cohort, we have these arguments all the time. I'll be like, they'll be like, "Can I have it in English, please?" I'm like, "No, can you have it in the rest of the world?" I think that's what you're trying to say.
You're so right, Alex.
You'd be like, "Oh my god, it's like 100 outside." I was like, "No, 100's boiling, darling. That's literally boiling water." So is this place open, or is this something that you're building at the moment? I mean,
no, it's under development. So we've written the program. Yeah. Our architects, Perkins Eastman, who is actually a multinational architectural firm, has designed it with us, and so it's all ready to go into construction documents. We have regulatory hurdles we have to achieve before we can, move the project forward. So it probably won't be built for a few more years, but it's sort of ready to go. I mean, it's programmed, it's designed, we have land. So we just need to put all the pieces together.
What is it? Obviously, there'll be people mostly listening to this audio. We haven't got any pictures, but can you describe to my listeners kind of what it's going to look like? I mean, what we talking about? Sorry.
Yeah. So there are 15 single family homes, one story. Each house has 7 bedrooms, living room, dining room, kitchen, laundry, den, front porch, back porch. And it's all sort of gathered in a sort of a circular kind of an environment. And then each house is sort of connected through a breezeway so that we can make the inside, as I call it, the hole of the donut, a secure environment where people can wander around and explore and not get into, can't get lost, can't get away. There's only one way in and one way out, and that's through the front door of our community center. And in the community center, we're going to have, as I said, we're going to have our tech bar in the lobby. We're going to have a neurocognitive clinic where people can come and have an immersion experience and talk to clinical folks. And then there'll be a multi-purpose room, a bistro, the grocery shop, and then our community building will have a health spa, beauty shop, and club rooms. And so, as I said, keeping life normal in the campus so that people can leave the house and go to the barn and see what the goats are doing, go to the grocery, pick up the things they need for lunch, come home, and as best they can or want to, can participate in the daily rhythm. And so there's no set routine If you want to get up at 6 o'clock and read the newspaper with a cup of coffee, that's what you'll do. If you want to stay up until 2 a.m. And sleep in until 10, that's okay too, because there are only 7 people in that house. And so it's really normalizing life for you. And so it's a tall order, because it's a lot easier if everybody has to adjust to the rhythm of the institution. But when we have to adjust the rhythm of the institution to each individual, there are going to be 105 people living on this campus.
Yeah. And I guess the testimonials from you guys at United Methodist Communities it helps that you guys have done a great job over the years doing what you've already done. Yeah, well, I mean, UMC has been in existence for 115 years, so they've been around a while, and right now, they operate 9 communities here in New Jersey, and we sort of cover the gamut from independent living to assisted living, memory support, skilled nursing, senior housing, and home care. So it sort of covers all of the kinds of services that seniors need, and it's amazing. It's a great reputation, and I was very proud to be the CEO there for 11 years. And nice. Great. From the 23-year-old admin clerk, whatever they call you,
the boy administrator.
The boy administrator.
Well, I mean, my staff were all 40s and 50s years old, and I was 23, and I probably did look 12.
All right, Governor, how's it going? I'd love to see it when it's finished. I'm definitely. I want to get my eyes open for you and the develops going forward. I think it sounds great, and obviously this is a lot to take on your own. Do you have a team around you that's working on different aspects of making sure this becomes a reality?
Well, I mean, there's a whole development team. We have our dementia specialist. I mean, she's obviously been very involved in creating the program. She wrote our curriculum. She got it certified by the Alzheimer's Association. Obviously, Perkins Eastman, our architects, a very well-known multinational company who builds all kinds of beautiful buildings around the world. And I've known the principal, Brad Perkins, since my South Florida days in the 1980s. And so he's become a great friend, and I know she really showed me, how to really make the environment, the built environment, work toward the betterment of all the seniors that we serve.
It's a huge undertaking, a job like this. You need to make sure you got the right people, and it sounds like over the years of experience, you've already got that with these architects that you'd known for such a long time. Is there anything that you guys are looking for that you haven't been able to get yet, that you might need a bit of help maybe from people to get, a bit of funding maybe, or a bit of equipment that you're looking for? I mean, how does that work?
Well, I mean, obviously, funding is going to be critical, and eventually, we'll have to be, taking out some financing for it. So obviously that's another project that has to get done down the road. Our challenge has been, we don't want to create something that's so unique and so expensive that, the typical senior organization around the world can't do it. And so that's really been a challenge just to figure this out. And so we think we have. Thankful to our friends in Amsterdam for giving us some very good insight as to how this might work. But of course, the big difference between UK and Amsterdam and US is that in Amsterdam they have socialized medicine, and so everybody who qualifies sort of lines up wanting to move in. Where in the US it's all private pay. And
I don't know if that complicates things though, because here in the UK, I don't know if it complicates things, because here in the UK, yes, we do have the NHS, and you have nursing homes that maybe are NHS care homes, but I guess you can go private too. Whereas in America, you're kind of all on the same sort of level. It's there, you can have it if you're.
You can have it if you can pay for it. Now, what we've done is we're reserving 10% of our rooms for people who can't afford it. And nice. And of course, that's been a challenge to the financial model too, because it's, 10% of the rooms that aren't going to be compensated like they are for the rest of them. at the end of the day, it takes X dollars to run the place. So.
Of course, and that's similar to what they do with the dentists over here. Obviously, I think all dentists are private, but they have NHS spaces, and you can apply for an NHS spot. But if you take the mickey and you don't turn up for your advice, they'll strike you off and they'll give your space to somebody else. That's kind of how they do it.
Yeah.
So you got to get those NHS spots in the dentist if you got to be quick. I'd like to talk a bit about your relationship with TV Guestbert, if you don't mind, because
sure,
I find them wonderful. How did you find out about Guestbert?
God, I heard about them from a friend of mine down in Nashville, Tennessee, who she had said to me, this is a year or so ago. She's, you really ought to write a book about this. I'm like, really? I'm like, okay. And she said, I've got this great, friend over at TV Guestbert, Jackie Jordan. And
shout out to Jackie.
Yeah, Jackie Jordan, and what a great connection that was for us. And it's been a wonderful journey. I mean, whoever thought I would write a book, right? Certainly my high school English teacher never would have predicted it, right? But but Jackie's been such a great resource for me as we've gone through this journey of writing the book, and then even editing the book was a real experience, to sort of get it to the way we really wanted to be. And then she said, now we've got to get you on some podcasts and some do some videos, and I'm like, really? I'm like, okay.
Dance, monkey, sure. Dance.
Right. Yeah. And so here I am talking to Alex in the UK today. And,
absolutely.
And it's fantastic.
In my new show that I've tried and tested yet. This is going to be a throw in the water. Is this going to work? I don't know, but we'll let the viewers and the listeners decide. Well, I'm very glad for Jackie. She's amazing.
She's a gem.
The way I met Jackie was really nice. So people that are listening to this in Shrewsbury, you may know the name Bibbs Cameron, Bibbs and Billy from Philly. What the great amazing people they are. So Bibbs runs the Civic Society. Oh my God, this happened to me last night, right? I was at Netley Hall. I'll explain this and I'll go back into what I was saying. I was at Netley Hall, which is a great stately house. I know the chef. They've opened up the Clock Tower restaurant, which is amazing. Going get some food from there because they are brilliant what they do. And we set up a podcast studio in front of a nice roaring fire. It was beautiful, right? Yeah. And I got introduced to the owner twice. So I knew his name, Harrison. I remembered it now. See, Harrison. And we sat down in front of this fire. I hit record. And do you know that moment when you realize it's really too hot and you kind of panic and you get that cold, tingly thing in the back of your neck? That happened to me, and I forgot his name completely as I hit record. And I'm with the owner. What's your name again? It's like I keep having these trigger moments where I keep forgetting.
I hate that.
It's nuts, isn't it?
I hate when that happens, right?
Bibbs from the Civic Society and Billy from Philly, Bill. And Jackie's a relative. And I meant to something about Charles Darwin that the Civic Society were putting on, because that's where Shrewsbury's where Charles Darwin was born. He was like, I've got a relative, Jackie, and we should definitely get you on and do some podcasts with her. So that's how we met. And ever since, they've been just wonderful people to know.
Yeah, they're great folk.
Has it helped? Has it helped an awful lot? Have you sold a few books?
Well, the book is just launching. The Kindle version is out there now on Amazon, and the paperback is coming any day, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So I hope I think there's an audience within the industry who will be interested to read it and hopefully want to learn more about it and copy it. And I think somebody who has a family member with a dementia diagnosis may want to read it too, because I think there's some insights in there that can help them feel better as a caregiver.
Dementia and Alzheimer's is a universal thing, isn't it? It affects everybody from every corner of the globe. So there are parts in your book that will translate perfectly, whether it comes to the behaviors or the treatments or, maybe certain feelings of panicking and anxiety that relatives might get, like, oh my God, well, how are we going to deal with this? I don't know how to deal with some of it. Like, I'm sure there are all those similar feelings that everybody must feel. So to have a book that can kind of,
I mean, because it's a journey. When someone's in early stage, a lot of families, their loved one may have said to them, "Don't ever put me in the home. I want to stay at home," right? But there becomes a crisis point where the family says, "I can't do this anymore," and I think the book is going to help them navigate that crisis and feel okay that that they have the best and highest interests of their loved ones in mind. And if there's an environment they can go live in where they're going to have their needs met and lead a normal life, I think that's going to be okay then.
Yeah, and that's the point I was trying to make, is that, say you've got a parent that suddenly comes down with dementia and there's issues, you've got to carry on working and looking after your kids and making sure that your life's running. So there may be times when you can't be on top of them to make sure they're okay. So it's best to have professionals or even an environment where they're going to be safe, and not just that.
When we were first starting this process, we did some market research, and we had some folks come in and had some conversations with them about how they were feeling. They needed to place someone, and what were they feeling? And there's this overriding sense of guilt that the adult child has about putting mom or dad in a institution, either because their relationship was such that the parent made them promise, never put me in the home, and it's really, really difficult. And then we had another group of the social service providers when we talked about Avandell as we were programming it, and they were like so excited that something like this could actually happen, because they know what's out there and what the options are. So it was a very interesting dynamic to see how, we thought 7 bedrooms in a house was wonderful, right? And the social service providers, they thought so as well. But the family caregivers were like, they have to live with 7 strangers. And they just, they just couldn't deal with that, because, for them, normal is 1. Dad lives alone in his house. Why does he have to all of a sudden live with 7 strangers? So it's
better than 35.
It's better than 35, yes. But they hadn't had that experience yet. They still had their loved one at home. So it's fraught with emotion, both on the physical, intellectual, and emotional level, and that's a very, very difficult dynamic to navigate.
Especially in the world. I mean, you guys, I don't know how things were quite dire over here during the pandemic for care homes. Can't get into that. For there are probably people like, I'm switching off right now if you're going there, Whiteley. I'm not doing that today, but I guess it must have been difficult for you guys as well during the pandemic, because
it was. But what's interesting, the small house environment fared the best out of all the senior living paradigms that are out there. So if you have 40 people living in one place, all of a sudden someone comes down with it. And this is not just true with COVID. It could be any infectious disease. All of a sudden, all 40 are potentially exposed. But if you're living in a house of 7, you can sort of contain things a lot easier, and it doesn't get out of control. And so there's a lot of small houses in the skilled nursing in the U.S., and they really fared so much better than the typical institution in the U.S. So it's a paradigm it's come of its time.
Did you during the pandemic, I know there were so many people that had some really good lessons actually, and actually advanced in the way they do things. A big shout out to Shrewsbury Town and the community, now known as the Shrewsbury Foundation. It's the charity that's attached to Shrewsbury Town Football Club. Amazing people. And during the pandemic, so they look after all people from all ages and do amazing things to keep the community happy. It's wonderful. And during the pandemic, they were sort of shipping out sort of tablets to so they can speak on Skype or Zoom or whatever it is they do, so they can keep in touch with their loved ones, and they're dropping these tablets off to people. And it's one of those situations where you realize that you can offer a lot of care also from a distance. You can still kind of almost be there. Did you guys learn any positives from the pandemic?
Well, absolutely. So first of all, and I'll say this as an industry generic comment, the embracement of technology came at a much more rapid pace because of the pandemic, because we were sort of forced to. And I mean, I'll give you a simple example. So we used to have resident council meetings or a family council meeting at each of our buildings. And, out of 100 residents, if we got 8 families to show up, that was probably the norm. After the pandemic, we went on, everything was on Zoom. We'd have 75 families on these on these calls every month.
Nice.
And, that wouldn't have happened. And I don't think we'll ever go back to having in-person. Well, we might occasionally have an in-person one, but it's just so much easier for people to engage, through the use of the technology.
Yeah, of course. And, now it's kind of like, can we not just do it on Teams? Do we have to all kind of get in the same room together? Can we just do it on Teams? And StreamYard as well. Big shout out. It is.
And I will say, as a CEO, I mean, I think there's a place for Teams and Zoom, but, it's hard, when people don't come to the office, that you miss the quote unquote water cooler conversations, and sort of the side conversations and the relationship building. And you can't build a relationship on Zoom, or not very, very good. There's a place for both. And I think, sort of hybrid work is sort of, the way it's going to go in the future. But in senior living, senior living, we need the people there. I mean, our staff during the pandemic, they came to work every day.
Yeah, I did too. I work in support, so in my job, I'll mention to you off air what I kind of do. I don't like talking about it too much, just in case somebody's like, "Oh, Alex is on the podcast talking about work." But I was working every single day. I worked all through the pandemic as well. Similar situations to what you're talking about. There was a few situations that just felt so uncomfortable during the pandemic. But again, we had some great. I mean, I was just about to mention StreamYard that we're recording on today. They kind of released, I think possibly just before the pandemic, maybe a little bit afterwards. But before, to do this podcast, we'd have me and do you remember Google Hangouts? We used to use Google Hangouts and we'd record our conversation via a mixer or something. He'd record his end, I'd record my end, we'd clap and then line up the claps on the audio. Whereas like StreamYard released this amazing bit of software where we can do this now. We can have a conversation across the ocean. Yeah. And pandemic's made it go. It's a great thing. Yeah. What is there anything that people can do to help you? People are listening to this. I mean, obviously we're here in Shrewsbury in the UK. You guys are in New Jersey. Is there anything that maybe it's a follow on social media or a conversation people can have with you to learn more? Is there anything that we can do to help you? Buy your book, of course.
Yes, buy my book. I think really to share stories of what's going on in their lives, and how the care providers can best engage with those people and help them solve their challenges, their caregiving challenges.
Yeah. Because like we mentioned earlier, this is universal. People doing this all around the world in different ways. And you learn this from the Netherlands. It's
absolutely.
It's crazy how the world.
Go visit the Hoikeve. It's a wonderful place.
I'm going to Google it. Can I? I'll do it after. I'll do it afterwards. I'm going to share pictures of this place on our social media, folks. So,
and there's more information on UnitedMethodistCommunities.org /Avandell. So if you want to see some pictures, we have some renderings of what we think Avandell is going to look like on that web page.
I think I have the website here. Let's see if I can get. Where is it? I just had it. Bristol Glen. I know. I should have had this queued up ready, shouldn't I? Again, I'll put pictures up on our social media so you guys can have a look.
So the Bristol and Bristol Glen is from Bristol, England. That's
oh, right, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. So, I mean, you guys are international then in the homes that you run. So it's not just America.
Well, no. Our homes are all in New Jersey. But all I'm saying, when they named Bristol Glen, they said they wanted to name it after Bristol, England.
I get you. Yep. Wonderful. Well, I think you've been amazing to speak to, Larry. Honestly, I've really enjoyed this because this, like I said, this is something that affects everybody around the world. And hopefully the listeners have taken something from this in the fact that it's not just you. There are a lot of people out there that are dealing with situations. So there's more people to speak to. There are a lot of other opportunities to get help and to speak to people in similar situations to yourself. Is there any sort of helplines or any avenues people can go down to speak to people in similar situations to themselves, wherever they are in the world? Do you know of?
Well, certainly the Alzheimer's Association is a great resource, know, at a very high level.
Wonderful. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, Larry, again, you've been fantastic. Thank you so much to TV Guestbert for putting this together. Larry, please keep in touch because I'd love
Alex,
to see when
thank you so much.
When the project is finished and we can look at it and stuff, I'd love to bring you back on the show so we can speak about how it's all launched and stuff.
Absolutely.
This is what we do
it's going to change the world, Alex.
I'm sure it will. So guys, thank you so much for tuning into this. This is the first Biscuit International that we've released. This is our opportunity to step out the SY and speak to people from not just in America, but we've got people from the UK as well that are just outside of Shropshire and outside of our jurisdiction, I guess you could say. So this is our opportunity to speak to people and learn, more importantly, about what people are doing around the world. I love doing this. I miss doing it with Tom Bruno. I wish Tom Bruno could be here, but this is a Biscuit thing, so it's got to stay Biscuit. But again, thank you so much to TV Guestbert for putting this together. And before I get out of here, I need to mention Web Orchard, who are building us a brand new state-of-the-art website. I was just chatting with Pete today. We were talking about logos. I think he's going to get a professional to take a look at. I designed this logo. It looks pretty cool. I like it, but he's like, we need to do some work on it to make it fit with the website. I was like, okay, fine. Look, get a professional to do it then for us. But they're fantastic. They're building something really, really cool. So if you need a website, wherever you are in the world, actually, just look for Web Orchard. They're based in Coton Hill in Shrewsbury, but I'm pretty sure if you speak to Pete, he can help you out wherever you are in the world for the perfect website just for you. Right, we're going to get out of here. Larry, is there anything else where can people follow you guys? Can they follow you guys on social media or anything like that? Give you some support?
Yeah, well, I'm on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yep. And certainly United Methodist Communities is on their social network channels as well.
Wonderful. Right, well, Larry, stick around after the outro, and I'll say goodbye to you properly. But for you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Peace out.